wonderful welcome. I am so honored to be here and to grace this stage today. And the first thing that I want to do before I start speaking is I want us to give a round of applause for Charlie Kirk, for Turning Point USA, all of the event organizers, everyone that put this event together. As you all can tell from just that quick clip, I know exactly how it feels to be silenced, right? To want to tell your story or to want to be able to stand for what you believe in. Not only do I know what it's like to be silenced, I know what it's like to be forced into silence. So I'm going to take you guys back a little bit, share a little bit about my story, and then in the end, I'll tell you all how I ended up on this stage. So at the age of 5 years old, right? Well, let me start over. So I was born, right, into this world. Like everybody else, we're all born innocent. We all have hopes and dreams, right, of being the best that we can be and making the best out of our lives when we grow older, right? So born into this world, an innocent child. And at the age of 5 years old, I was sexually abused by a family member. So a lot of people are forced into silence. They don't speak. But I had enough strength in me to speak up and to tell what happened because I wanted to see a difference, right? Unfortunately, in some families, we know that sexual abuse is something that's swept up under the rug. So at the age of 5, I was silenced. That silence put me on a complete path of destruction. I felt as though I wasn't loved. I felt as though I didn't count. I felt as though I was unimportant. So for the next few years, I ended up getting kicked out of every school that I went to. I was the troubled child. No one wanted to be bothered with me. But the thing about it is that no one could see that I was really hurting on the inside. How many of us know that children, when they're going through something, they don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to explain what it is that they're dealing with, so a lot of times they act out. So I'm running away, 9, 10, 11 years old. I'm in the streets. I'm looking for love in all of the wrong places. At the age of 14, I found out that I was pregnant. It was a big shock to my entire family. But I had been living a life of promiscuity. A lot of people ask why. Well, guess what? My innocence had been taken from me. It was something that was robbed. So I didn't have any self-worth. So it was nothing for me to allow someone to take advantage of me because it was something that had been forced on me and something that I had accepted. So when we found out that I was pregnant at the age of 14, my father demanded an abortion. My mother, on the other hand, she fought for life. She refused, right? I kept my baby. I had her at 15. Today, absolutely. We fight for life. That same daughter graduated from Howard Law. She's an attorney. She works for World Bank. Absolutely, we fight for life. I had my baby. She was in the care of my parents. I knew that she would be taken care of, and I returned back to the streets because I was hurting, and I was searching, and I was looking for something that I couldn't find. So by the age of 27, on my second term in prison, I found myself handcuffed to a bed, giving birth to my daughter. Not only was I handcuffed to a bed, and this is for a nonviolent crime, not only was I handcuffed to the bed while giving birth to my daughter, but there is also a sheriff there in the room that stood there watching. And even when the doctors asked him to leave out of the room, he refused. So for me that day, remember, in my childhood, I had been a victim of childhood sexual abuse. And even though he didn't touch me, I felt victimized all over again. I only had 24 hours with my baby. The whole entire time I was handcuffed to a bed with one arm and had to use the other arm to try to tend to her. After those 24 hours were up, thankfully for me, I had family for somebody to get my baby. So she went to my mother, and I was hauled back off to a Georgia State prison. Well, I'm at the prison, and the prison is overcrowded. So I'm given a mat to sleep on the floor. So I'm getting up and down off of the floor after just giving birth, and I began to hemorrhage. We're talking about really inhumane conditions within our prison system in the border, right? So this is about family separation in the border. So I finished my prison sentence. A lot went on. My mother ended up passing away while I was 6 months into my prison sentence. She died of a massive heart attack. My grandmother also died right after that. So I still had 3 years to go. I'm inside of this prison and I'm completely broken, right? I didn't feel as though I had anything to live for other than my children. I wanted to get back home and I wanted to get to them because I knew that they needed me. So 3 years goes by, and then finally I'm released from a Georgia State prison. And I'm given a $25 check and a bus ticket, and I'm told, here, go start your life over. I absolutely came home to nothing other than 3 garbage bags full of clothes, 4 minor children, and 2 tombstones. My mother was in one, and my grandmother was in the other. So not only am I a single mother, I'm also a convicted felon. And so this is my first time being reunited with my children after serving 3 years, and I'm going around everywhere trying to find a job. Nobody wants to hire me. Not only is it because I'm a convicted felon, but I am a single mother, so they're looking at me as if I'm a liability. Not only that, I couldn't get any government assistance. I couldn't get Section 8 because I was a convicted felon. So here I am fighting to stay alive. So my children and I, we went to one shelter. We could only stay there for 30 days until our max out date. We ended up going to another until eventually we went to just about every shelter in Atlanta. Then finally, with nowhere else to go, we were about to be on the streets. A young lady told me, she says, I know of a place that you can go that will help you and your children. Because at this point, I've lost it. I'm like, there is absolutely no hope for me whatsoever. I'll never be able to dig myself out of this hole. So I go to this pregnancy, well, it's a women and children's crisis center. I go to the crisis center, and there's a lady sitting behind the desk. And I'm crying my eyes out to this woman, and I'm telling her how I don't want to live anymore. I can't take care of my children. There is no way that I'll be able to make it. The lady sitting behind the desk that day was Dr. King, my godmother. Absolutely. She promised me that day, she said, Angela, if you want to get your life back on track, if you want to get yourself together, she said, I'll help you. And that day, she gave me a job in her office. Not only did she give me a job, but she also adopted my children and I. Today, thank you so much. So now that we've gotten past all that, let me tell you all how I got here. So probably about 6 or 7 months ago, and I paid really close attention to politics because my godmother, she works very closely while I'm with this administration. And I saw America and everybody crying about children being separated from their parents at the border. And I said, Mom, what about the American families that have been separated in the border? I said, Mom, what about when they took my baby out of my arms and separated us? What about all of these American families that have been separated by these democratic policies? Mass incarceration, absolutely. Mass incarceration. What about Section 8, right? Because they've made it where we were dependent on that system. So they say, hey, we'll help you, we'll help your children, but the father can't live in the home, right? So that's a form of family separation right there. So I said, Mom, what about all of our children in cages called juvenile detention centers across America? Why is no one crying for them? I said, Mom, what about the fact that a pregnant woman, she could get arrested, right? And not even charged. Let's just say she hasn't been to court, she hasn't been convicted, she just has a charge, no conviction, and she's arrested. And she can't afford bond, but she's sitting in jail. If she goes into labor, she's going to be separated from her child. This is without a conviction. So I said, Mom, I've got to get in this fight. How come they don't understand that there's no difference between an American criminal and an illegal immigrant? Now, here's the difference. One is an American citizen, one is not. But when we break laws, we have to be accountable. Is that right? Absolutely. 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 I said, Mom, let me get involved. So then our president, he gave out a national call. He said for entertainers, NFL players, anybody that has a list or want to submit a name for somebody to clemency, come sit down, come talk to me. And so I was listening, and I saw how Meek Mill and all of these other artists, they didn't want to go in. They didn't want to talk to him. I said, Mom, let's tell him my story. Let's tell him my story. So I jumped in the fight, and thank you to President Donald Trump. Not only did we pass the First Step Act, which is reuniting, absolutely. The First Step Act, which is reuniting thousands of American families, that have been separated. There's also a clause in the First Step Act that no woman shall ever be chained to a bed again during childbirth. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I've also worked with my godmother in the fight for life, for abortion. And I am absolutely. One of the things that hurt me a lot, because I've been with her to a lot of protests and I've stood on the front line, I don't see many people of my color there standing and fighting for our children. And then every time I turn around, the first thing they want to do is label my president a racist, but they don't see anything wrong with sacrificing their children at the abortion mills. How racist is that? How racist is it to kill someone before they even have a chance to live? How racist is it to target babies just because they're born into poor families? We know that Title X, those funds were created specifically for people in low-income areas. And then there's another clause in there that says the uninsured. So this is the socially undesirable people, right? It's the same thing. There is no difference. So I raise my voice all the time in my community, and I tell them, as we stand up and we raise our voices to fight injustice, and we raise our voices to fight racism, why are we so silent on the #1 killer of Black life as of today? Absolutely. I am so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to stand in front of you all. And then here's one more thing that I'm going to say before I close. I am so glad that I was denied government benefits when I got out of prison. You know why? Because I had to discover my greatness. I didn't sit at home and collect a check. I didn't get content. You know what I did? I got on my feet. Right. I started my own business. Today I have a publishing company. I've published over 100 authors all over the world. Absolutely. I am a proud Black conservative. Thank you all so much for having me today.